My name is Max, and at the start of 2025, I bought a van. For the past few years, it has been my dream to do a van conversion. And when I found this old Ford box van on Facebook Marketplace, I knew I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Over the past few months, I have been doing a ton of work to my new van, but most recently, I completely removed the van's roll-up garage door and replaced it with this back wall. The wall features a window for enjoying those scenic views, along with a big garage door for access to what will eventually be underneath the bed. Well, even with all of the time and energy I spent on this back wall, over the past few weeks, I have not been able to stop thinking about it. The truth is, I'm pretty concerned about weather resistance and durability. I've tried to let it go and be okay with it not being perfect, but I know if I don't make some changes, it's going to be one of those things that continues to bother me. So today starts a new project. I don't want to call it a full rebuild, but we're going to be making a few changes to this back wall. Living in Oregon, we get a ton of rain, so my big focus with these upgrades is going to be weather resistance. I don't know how all of this is going to go or if what I'm thinking of doing is a bad idea, but I'm going to show you guys the process and hopefully we can make it work. Thanks so much for tuning into this one, and I hope you guys enjoy. To start things off today, we are going to work on removing this garage door, which is a little bit sad because I know how much time and energy went into making this work, but unfortunately for the rebuild, this door is going to have to come off. And there we go, slowly taking this thing apart. Not gonna lie, it is pretty hard to pull all of this apart just because I know how much hard work went into it. But sometimes in order to move forwards, you have to take a few steps back. My plan for the rebuild was to still use the lower section of plywood or the piece that made up the old garage door, but just in a different way. I started by removing it from the wall along with all of the pieces that came with it, like the handles, struts, and hinges. By no means was I starting from scratch with this rear wall, but I was trying to give myself a fresh start. So at this point in time, I know you guys are probably wondering why I would remove this garage door when I spent so much time making it work. You have to remember that my biggest goal with this rear wall was emphasizing weather resistance and durability, just making sure this was going to withstand all of the rain we get here in Oregon. I tried a lot of different ways to seal this garage door that I made, but none of them seemed quite durable enough for me. So instead of building and using this custom DIY garage door, I went ahead and bought this instead. This is a big RV compartment door. It's a little bit smaller. We're going to lose a little bit of space by installing this, but it should be way more durable and way more weather resistant. This new RV compartment door is actually a little bit taller, so I went ahead and marked out the outline of the frame here. And we're going to have to go through and trim this out so that we can mount this into the back wall. I just got this huge jigsaw blade. We're gonna give this a shot because we're cutting through 3/4 inch plywood and then a 2x6. And most of these smaller jigsaw blades just aren't quite deep enough to go all the way through. Wow, cutting through all of that was a lot harder than I thought. Let's go ahead and test fit this thing and see if it works. Oh my gosh, would you look at that? Money. I love when things work out. That looks awesome. And just to give you guys a little closer look at what I was trimming, it was this outside layer of 3/4 inch plywood along with the 2x6 support. So this 2x6 runs horizontally between the frame I built in the last couple of videos, and it adds some stability to the frame, but also gave me a place to bolt in and mount this top section of plywood. Now that we've got this cut out, I want to give you guys a little more information on my plan here. This used to be our garage door, and instead of having this entire thing open, we are going to basically permanently fix this onto the wall, just like we did with the top section of plywood. Then we'll make the cutout for the RV compartment door, and then we'll attach it in, and that new compartment door will be our new garage door. It was scary to essentially be destroying the piece of plywood that made up my old garage door. The piece I had spent so much time working on. But I had a vision and trusted my instincts. So I cut out a huge hole into the plywood, destroying the old garage door but making room for the new one. The width between the two holes I had previously cut out for the slam latches was around 46 inches wide, and the new RV compartment door was 48 inches wide. This meant those two holes would be included in the centerpiece I was cutting out. None of these modifications were planned, so all I can say is that I got super lucky here. If the handles had been just a few inches farther apart, I probably would have had to make an all new sheet of plywood. Alright, just finished cutting out this, and now it is time to test fit the compartment door and make sure that this actually works. No way. First try. That sits in there perfectly. Let's go. So along with adding the new RV compartment door, part of my plan for weatherproofing this back wall is to actually have no exposed plywood. I just made a 7-hour round trip last weekend to Portland with my younger brother Owen. Shout out to you, Owen, for coming in and helping with me on this one. But we went and picked up some ACM, which is an aluminum composite material, and the plan is to cover all of the plywood with this ACM. I'm going to start by outlining the RV compartment door onto the ACM, and then we'll take a look at it and see if we can figure out how to make the cutout. But again, the goal here is weatherproofing and to have no exposed plywood. Now that we made the cutout for this new RV access door, and we've kind of test fit it and know that everything works, we're going to actually mount that bottom piece of plywood to the frame. I'm planning to do it the exact same way I mounted this top piece of plywood, just using some wood screws and construction adhesive. So this top piece of aluminum is definitely the piece I have been most concerned about, because I had to make the cutout around the window, and because this window is already mounted, I wasn't exactly sure how big to make this hole. So I'm going to throw it up here for the first time, just kind of test fit it in place, and hopefully it clears the window and this whole thing lines up. But let's give it a shot. I'm a little bit nervous about this one. As I was expecting, there is a gap around the window here, but I'm totally okay with that. I'm just planning to add some Sikaflex to kind of fill it in. I used some rubber edge trim on the edges of the plywood to try and seal it on my first version of the wall build, but now we're going to be using a completely different style of trim, so we're going to rip all of this old trim off. So before we can actually mount these ACM panels to our back wall, we need to give this thing a good clean and get the surface ready for securing the panels. Just gonna go around with some simple green and get this surface nice and cleaned up. With the back wall cleaned off, I had one last step before mounting the ACM. I needed to trim the panels down about 1/4 inch on each side. The reason I did this was so that when I was later bolting up the metal edge trim, I would be able to screw the trim to the wood wall without drilling any holes through the ACM panels. By trimming it down, this also left a little wiggle room for the ACM to expand and contract with temperature change. The edge trim was not the main way I would be securing the panels to the wall, which is also why I chose to avoid drilling holes through the panels. So you guys can see here the bottom section has not been cut, the top section has. And by doing that, we have this open area of plywood now. So when we're actually going to attach the trim, the screws are going to go straight into the plywood. We're not going to make any holes into the ACM. Time for a little explanation of how I'm going to be attaching the ACM panel. So first of all, I did a ton of research on this and there are lots of different ways that you can attach this, but it seems like the most common way to attach these panels is by using 3M VHB or very high bond tape. So that's the main way these panels are going to be attached to the wall, is with 3M tape. And I know that sounds crazy, but 3M tape is very, very strong. Along with the 3M tape, we are going to have some trim around the corners. So this will also help to hold the ACM in place. Alright guys, top piece is on. It sits like perfectly flush here along the bottom piece. Super stoked with how that came out. Just using this little roller to kind of press it in place here. Well guys, the time has come. I'm going to peel off this backing paper and see how it looks for the first time. I could not be more excited about this. Yeah, that's so good. Sick. Thanks for your help.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
All right, guys, the ACM panels are now attached using that 3M tape. It looks so good. I just have the RV compartment door just sitting in here right now. And oh my gosh, talk about an improvement over the first version of this back wall. Once we add this trim to the sides, all of the plywood will be covered. And the only thing exposed to the elements will be the aluminum. And that makes me feel so much better. With the ACM panels finally attached to the wall, the next goal was protecting the edges of the plywood with some metal trim. I got the trim from Rec Pro, a big online RV parts supply store, and it's designed specifically for use on RVs and campers. The trim came in 8-foot sections, and since our rear wall is 6 foot by 6 foot, I started with some trimming. Sorry, bad joke, not that funny. I'm going to start with the top piece here, get this bolted in. Again, I want to show you guys there is this gap between the ACM and the edge of the van where there is like maybe ½ inch or so of plywood, and that plywood is for these screws to bolt into. So we're actually not going to be bolting into the ACM at all. The trim will still be here to help hold the ACM in place, but we're not going to have any holes and potential leak points. The trim went on super easily. Buying the RV specific trim made a big difference. Everything lined up and all the screw holes were perfectly positioned. With just a little bit of modification, I got the trim attached to all 4 edges of the back wall. Along with protecting the edges of the plywood, the trim also gave the back wall a clean, professional looking finish. With everything screwed in place, I installed some vinyl trim inserts to cover up all of the visible screws. The back wall was finally starting to take shape, and it looked even better than I had hoped for. We got all of the trim in place, and next we are going to permanently attach this RV compartment door. To do that, we're gonna pretty much use the standard process, some butyl tape around the edges, and then this door actually has some bolts along the inside of the frame, so we can actually bolt directly into the plywood from the first version of our walls. I know it's funny, but honestly, getting one of these little rollers is so helpful. For any time you're using butyl tape, 3M tape, anything like that, being able to roll it on can really save your fingers from going around and pressing it. I know this door doesn't have struts like my old garage door did, but I will do that eventually at some point. I don't think it should be too difficult. For the meantime, this door is super light. Alright guys, welcome back. It's the next day. I just finished taping off that window. I went a little overboard with the taping, but I really want this to look nice, so I did a layer of electrical tape around the edges first, and that is super thin, super low profile, so hopefully it won't create much of an edge with the sealant. And then I added some masking tape, just some bigger stuff to prevent any drip, because that electrical tape is pretty thin. So we're gonna go through and apply some Sikaflex here. Now this is a sealant I've been using on a ton of different parts in the van build so far. I know in a perfect world I would have been able to mount the window from the outside, but because this is my first van build and I don't know what I'm doing, we're having to adapt on the fly, and in this case that means sealing this gap that's around the window and the ACM panel. So there's this little gap here in between the two ACM panels because we had to cut a bottom and top piece. I'm just gonna use some white Sikaflex to kind of seal them off. And I feel like it should close that gap and hopefully look pretty clean as well too. Alright, so I added sealant to kind of fill in this gap around the window, and then also a little bit of sealant in between the two pieces of ACM here. I'm definitely not a pro at working with Sikaflex or sealants like this. It doesn't look absolutely amazing, but honestly I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. I think one of the biggest takeaways from the rebuild of this back wall is just that things might not turn out as you want on the first try, and it is so important to keep going and not give up. The first version of this back wall was kind of like a rough draft. It was something to get me started. It got rid of the roll-up garage door, but it wasn't perfect. It had its problems. Now there were some good parts to it too, but there was a lot to improve on. This new upgraded version of the back wall is the final draft. This is the project or essay that we are turning into the teacher for our final grade, and I am so proud of it. Let me give you guys a closer look. The wall starts with a 2x4 frame that is mounted into the metal frame of the box van. We built this frame so that we had a mounting location for the plywood, which in the first version was the exterior to the back wall. The back wall is built of two 3/4 inch pieces of sand plywood. The plywood is primed and painted on all sides and edges, and the reason for that is because originally this was going to be the final outside layer to my back wall. We have two sections of plywood that are bolted to the frame, a top and lower section, and these provide a nice and sturdy foundation to our back wall. So this brings us into the final draft, the final version of the rear wall. The biggest difference we made was covering all of the plywood, and that starts with these two sheets of ACM or aluminum composite material. These ACM panels are light, thin, and durable, and provide an excellent cover to protect our plywood underneath. Along the edges we have some RV 90-degree metal trim. I might also seal the outside edges of the trim with Sikaflex too, but I haven't quite gotten to it yet. The lower garage door has slam latches with logs along with weather sealing on the inside, So it should be pretty secure and weatherproof. And that is it, guys. That is a look at the final version of my box van's rear wall, and I could not be more stoked about it. If you guys enjoyed this one and are interested in seeing more of the box van build, don't forget to like and subscribe. There is so much more to do with this build and lots more content coming soon. Thanks again for watching this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.
I've been working, I've been drinking.